Forgiveness, the ultimate guide to forgiving yourself for past mistakes. Hey everyone, welcome back to Whispers of Light. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to forgive yourself for your mistakes, how to forgive yourself for hurting other people, for doing things that maybe you regret or wish you could take back. I am your host, Tony. This is an incredibly important topic because oftentimes we can be our own worst critic. We can be our own executioner. We can spend our days ruminating over these mistakes, over this perceived lack of self-worth, this perceived unworthiness. And we wonder, why do we have to carry this burden? We feel so guilty, so ashamed. How do we let ourselves off the hook? So, in today's episode, we are going to be breaking down exactly how you can do that and how you can free yourself from any of this emotional torment. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to thank you all for your support and for your love and for sharing these videos with the people who you think they may help. It means the absolute world to me. Now let's dive right into today's video. Step number 1, acknowledge the hurt in your role. The first thing that you want to do when you're trying to forgive yourself for something that you've done is you want to acknowledge what actually happened. You don't want to deny it, pretend it didn't happen, get drunk and black out and try to forget about it. What happened, and there's no use in denying that reality or beating yourself up over it. So there's 2 parts to this step. First one is acknowledging what actually happened. Second one is acknowledging what role you played in what happened. Sometimes we can be hard on ourselves because we should have known better. We should have done better. We should have acted differently. We should have felt differently. But by berating ourselves, by yelling at ourselves, by insulting ourselves, that doesn't change what happened. It just makes us feel really bad about ourselves. And when we feel really bad about ourselves, we start to believe that we're unworthy, that we're bad people, that we're terrible people, that we deserve this pain. And when we start believing those things about ourselves, we make it very difficult for us to move forward. We make it very difficult for us to heal. What I encourage you to do is, instead of hating yourself for what you did, instead of judging yourself, instead of calling yourself names, and instead of putting yourself down, is to say, okay, what happened, and I had a role in that happening. Now, sometimes we don't even know what our role was. Sometimes we don't even know why we did what we did, and that's okay. Sometimes people do bad things for good reasons. Sometimes people do bad things because they weren't equipped with the tools to handle the situation properly. And we want to understand why we did what we did. In order to forgive ourselves, we need to understand why we did what we did. Maybe it was because of the way that we were raised. Maybe it was because of the people that we surrounded ourselves with. Maybe it was because of the environment that we grew up in. Maybe it was because we were dealing with trauma. Maybe it was because we had certain mental health challenges. Maybe it was because we were overwhelmed and we didn't know how to cope. Maybe it was because someone treated us poorly and we wanted to treat them the same way that they treated us. There can be a lot of different reasons as to why we end up doing the things that we end up doing. And understanding those reasons is extremely powerful because then we can start to see why we did what we did. We can start to see the thought processes behind why we did what we did. We can start to see the emotions that led us down that path. And we can start to see the beliefs that motivated us to take the actions that we took. Because once you understand why you did something, it becomes less likely that you'll repeat that behavior in the future because now you know what led you down that path and you can decide to break that cycle. You can decide to do something different next time. Step number 2, release unrealistic standards. Sometimes we hold ourselves to such unrealistic standards, and when we do that, we set ourselves up for failure. When we set ourselves up for failure, we feel really bad about ourselves. We feel really disappointed in ourselves, and we feel like we have to punish ourselves for not living up to these standards. These may be standards that you set for yourself or that other people set for you, or standards that society has set for you. But whatever the case may be, if you're holding yourself to an unrealistic standard and you're not meeting that standard, guess what? That happens to all of us. That happens to every single person on this planet. Think of all the times where you've set an unrealistic standard for yourself. Maybe for a project, maybe for a goal, maybe for a relationship, maybe for your weight, maybe for your appearance. How many times have you failed to meet that standard? And when you failed to meet that standard, what did you do? Did you hate yourself? Did you judge yourself? Did you put yourself down? Or did you accept that you're human, you're imperfect, and that's okay? When we realize that it's okay to not be perfect, when we realize that it's okay to make mistakes, when we realize that it's okay to screw up, when we realize that it's okay to fail, then we can forgive ourselves for those mistakes. Then we can stop hating ourselves for those mistakes. Then we can stop judging ourselves for those mistakes. And then we can work towards repairing those mistakes without hating ourselves or judging ourselves for having made the mistake in the first place. Step number 3, express regret without self-destruction. The third thing that you want to do after you've acknowledged the hurt and your role in the hurt and you've released unrealistic standards is you want to express regret without destroying yourself. What I mean by that is that it's okay to regret what you did. It's okay to feel remorseful over what you did. But you don't want to destroy yourself for feeling that way. So how do we do that? Well, you can do that by recognizing that regret and normal, natural, healthy emotions to feel. Anytime we do something that hurts someone else or hurts ourselves, it's perfectly okay to feel bad about it. It's perfectly okay to regret it, but you don't want to dwell in that regret. You don't want to dwell in that remorse. You don't want to make that the identity that you hold on to because that becomes self-destructive. Instead, what you want to do is you want to acknowledge that regret, sit in it for a little bit, feel that emotion, recognize that emotion, and then let it pass. Let it flow through you like a wave crashing into the shore. You want to acknowledge the regret, you want to acknowledge the remorse, but you don't want to drown in it. Step number 4, make amends where possible. The fourth step that you want to take is to make amends where possible. Now, this may be difficult. This may not always be possible, but when it is possible, it's a good idea to make amends. Why is it a good idea to make amends? Well, when we make amends, when we try to fix the situation, when we try to apologize, when we try to take responsibility, then we can start to feel better about ourselves because we're taking control of the situation. We're not just sitting there feeling sorry for ourselves. We're not just sitting there thinking about how awful we are. We're actually taking steps to make the situation better. Now, sometimes we cannot make amends for what we've done. Sometimes it's not possible. Maybe the person that we hurt is no longer in our lives. Maybe the person that we hurt doesn't want to hear from us anymore. Maybe we don't know who that person is. Maybe the hurt that we caused them is irreparable. But if it is reparable, if we can fix it, if we can make it better, then we should try to do that. And by making amends, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to fix everything. We don't have to make everything better. All we have to do is try. All we have to do is take a step in the direction of fixing it, taking a step in the direction of making it better. And even if that's not possible, if it's not reparable, if it's not something that we can fix, then we still have to try. We still have to try because what we're trying to do here is forgive ourselves. And in order to forgive ourselves, we have to try to make things better. Even if we can't make things better, we have to try. Step number 5, shift the inner dialogue. The fifth step that you want to take is to shift your inner dialogue. What I mean by that is that you want to be aware of what you're saying to yourself. Have you ever noticed how hard you are on yourself? Have you ever noticed how mean you are to yourself? Have you ever noticed how much you judge yourself? Have you ever noticed how much you insult yourself? Have you ever noticed how much you criticize yourself? If you have, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. We can be so hard on ourselves. We can be so mean to ourselves. We can be so judgmental of ourselves. And that is not helpful. That is not conducive to healing. That is not conducive to moving forward. So instead of being so hard on ourselves, what we want to do is we want to start to notice those negative thoughts. We want to start to notice that inner dialogue. We want to start to challenge those thoughts. We want to start to look at those thoughts and ask ourselves, would I say this to a loved one? Would I say this to a friend? Would I say this to a family member? If the answer is no, then why am I saying it to myself? If the answer is no, then why am I being so hard on myself? Why am I judging myself so harshly? Why am I criticizing myself so harshly? Why am I punishing myself so harshly? And instead of those negative thoughts, What we want to do is we want to start to replace them with positive, compassionate, truthful, affirming statements instead of saying, "Oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm so horrible. I'm so horrible. I'm so worthless. What did I do? I am such a screw up." We want to start to replace those thoughts with thoughts like, "I'm doing the best that I can. I'm learning and growing from this experience. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I'm capable. I'm worthy. I am enough." Step number 6, learn and integrate the lesson. The sixth step that you want to take is to learn and integrate the lesson. What I mean by that is that anytime we go through a difficult experience, anytime we make a mistake, anytime we do something that we regret, there's always a lesson in it. There's always something that we can take away from that experience that can help us grow, that can help us evolve, that can help us become better people. And the question is, are we going to take that lesson? Are we going to integrate that lesson into our life? Are we going to use that lesson to help guide us in the future? Or are we going to keep rehashing the same mistakes over and over and over again? Or are we going to keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over again? You know, we have a choice in this matter. We can either learn the lesson and grow from it, or we can keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I know that it might not feel like it at the time. But if we choose to learn the lesson, and if we choose to integrate the lesson into our life, then this experience, this mistake, this thing that we did that we regret doesn't become a lifelong prison for us. Instead, it becomes a stepping stone on our journey. It becomes a teacher, it becomes a guide, it becomes a mentor, it becomes a compass that helps us navigate the rest of our life. Step number 7, commit to moving forward. The last step that you want to take is to commit to moving forward. After you've acknowledged the hurt, you've understood why you did what you did. You've released unrealistic standards. You've expressed regret without destroying yourself. You've made amends where possible. You've shifted your inner dialogue. You've learned the lesson and integrated that lesson. Then what? Then you want to commit to moving forward. You don't want to keep reliving the past. You don't want to keep ruminating over the past. You don't want to keep dredging up the past. You want to let the past stay in the past where it belongs, and you want to commit to living in the present moment. Living in this moment right now, living in this breath, living in what is, living in reality. And you want to make sure that you're not making decisions based on fear, guilt, shame, or anxiety, but instead you're making decisions based on truth, compassion, authenticity, kindness, love, acceptance, and forgiveness. Because when we make decisions based on those kinds of principles, then we're more likely to make decisions that are in alignment with our true selves, that are in alignment with our deepest values, that are in alignment with our soul. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you found some insight in it. If you did, please let me know in the comments below. As always, sending you all my love and all my light.